Why does 2025 keep showing up in occult writings and even the global agendas? And did you know that for decades, New Age leaders like Alice Bailey and even those that believe in the Yuga cycles have actually pointed to this year where a major shift takes place? So, what are they really expecting, and why in the world does it even matter? Well, I got to sit down with JB Hixson on a recent interview to discuss all the happenings, and you're not going to want to miss it. It's coming right at you now. Welcome to Certainty for Uncertain Times. My name is Lauren, and the entire goal behind this channel is to help you navigate through the chaos, the clown world, and the dumpster fire that we all find ourselves living in these days, and honestly, just trying to survive. But we do it through the lens of the Bible, also while connecting the most crucial dots to Bible prophecy, because guess what? It is happening in and around you, whether you believe it or not. Now, if you want to dive deeper into the Bible's prophetic puzzle pieces, then guess what? You are in the right place. And I'm going to ask that you smash that like button, subscribe, hit that bell, and even give this video a share. I'm not super popular with the tech overlords, and sharing is caring. So today's video is a recent interview that I got to do with JB Hixson, and those of you who've been on this channel long enough know how much I really appreciate JB and his work and how much it has helped me actually over the years to really put together a lot of the puzzle pieces in regards to the Luciferian agenda. So JB had me on the show. I think we did the interview on the 15th of January, and he released it a few days after the inauguration. Now, we talked a whole lot about 2025, and I spent the first half of the show really diving into some of the writings that have been written over the years about something called a Yuga cycle, which you'll learn about in this interview today, along with some of the writings that come from people like Alice Bailey. Like, we dove into some of these things that these people are expecting to happen this year. And I have personally found it super fascinating because of the fact that, as JB and I talk about, it's really mind-blowing to us that all of them seem to be really focused on this year, and we all know that they are influenced by demonic entities and demons in general, where they're getting these writings from, these downloads, all the things that they're getting. So I hope you guys really enjoy this interview today. And by the way, I'm actually thinking about doing a deeper dive video on this topic because I have a whole lot of articles and research from it. I just haven't put it all together yet. So what you see on JB's show today is just a little glimpse of some of the stuff that I have been reading through and putting together. And so if that's something that you want to see more of, why don't you guys let me know down in the comments, and I can actually work on a pre-recorded video to get that out to you guys. Especially, it could be one that would be worth sending to people so they kind of know where this stuff is coming from, and especially if they are wrapped up in any type of new age items, so to speak, that they're looking at for this year. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview. Let's go ahead and get to it. Heads up, guys. Some parts of this interview are muted because, well, you know how these platforms are, but I've put the missing words on screen so you won't miss anything. Just do me a favor and do not type those words in the comments so this video stays put. I appreciate it.
Well, Lauren, welcome back to the show. How you been?
Hey, JB, I've been real good. Just watching the events happening.
Yeah, a little bit of stuff going on, isn't there?
Just a smidge, you know. We're
Yeah.
starting out the year with the bang.
Well, we were talking right before we started here. It's amazing how we talked about what was coming for so long, and now kind of we're in 25, and it's like I don't claim to be a prophet. I know you don't claim to be a prophetess, but yet
New.
we're right, weren't we? Things are just
A little bit.
coming unglued, aren't they?
They really are.
So we're recording this just prior to the inauguration. By the time it airs, Trump will be in office, Lord willing, unless of course the Lord comes back, and which would be great. But what are you seeing? We wanted to focus today on some of the demonic fingerprints that are really showing themselves here in 2025. There are a lot of sort of things emanating from the dark side, connecting dots that show that there is a higher power at play here. That's really is a cosmic battle. So take it away. Tell us kind of some of the stuff you're watching.
Yeah. So as I was kind of telling you before we hit the record button, my head has been, it's just been knee deep in all of like the occult things that these folks are really believing are going to happen this year. I've got some stuff to kind of share with the audience here today. So we've got that stuff going on, which is where my head is mainly at, because I'm so curious at why these people are just so confident that all this stuff is going to come to pass this year. A lot of astrology pieces to it. Obviously, you've talked about Alice Bailey in your books, and everybody here probably knows who Helena Blavatsky is. All of those theosophists, I always want to say that word wrong. Hopefully, I got it right. And just all of the things that they've written about in their books, and then people that have even come after them or before them. It's wild to see some of this stuff. So there's that. I've been paying attention to. I know there's talk about some kind of disclosure coming before Inauguration Day. So I'm going, well, what does that mean? Is this going to be Will Smith and Independence Day, but 2025 style? Like, what is happening? We've got, I even wrote down, Mark Zuckerberg decided he's now going to lift all of the restrictions for censorship when he said he never censored in the first place, but now they're going to lift. So that was odd. I saw that last week and I was like, why are they switching teams now? Let's see what else. We got Trump today with the two-state solution. I've got a post pulled up of just some of the things that he put out on whatever network that is, Freedom Network or whatever network it is. But so it's just like, and then we have what's going on in California. I mean,
Hmm.
like I just, I don't know. I'm honestly, my brain is ready to just explode because there's just so many things going on. It's really hard to like we talk about this all the time, but I kind of feel like I'm getting tired of saying it's hard to keep up because I feel like that's an understatement to the present day, of which I'm saying it again.
Yeah, no, I get it. So, yeah, your first item on the list there, let's start with that because
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued by what the dark side, the Luciferians, the Satanists are saying they hope to accomplish this year. And to set the stage for that, let me just read a couple of sentences here from my book, Spirit of the Antichrist, Volume 2. The fourth chapter is called The Luciferian Timetable and Agenda 2030. And I have a whole section in that chapter about 2025. So, you referenced Alice Bailey, so reading from my book, in her writings, Bailey makes at least 15 references to the year 2025 based upon demonic revelations from Master DK. Now, remember, Alice Bailey is a theosophist, as you said, a disciple of Helena Blavatsky. She wrote to 10,000 pages uh, and in some 24 books, most of them published after her death. But, absolutely she talks about several times 2025, and
Mhm.
I think 10 different times. And so I asked the question, could it be mere coincidence that nearly 100 years ago, high level Satanists with a direct line to Lucifer himself were discussing the year 2025, and today leading members of the Luciferian conspiracy are targeting the same time frame? So what do you think? What are you hearing? What are they plotting and planning for 2025?
Well, it's really weird because, again, I don't follow astrology at all, but the stuff I'm looking at right now is coming from articles with people who follow astrology. And we're going to talk a little bit about something called a Yuga cycle, not yoga, but Yuga, Yuga. But what's wild is that while these articles are all over the place in some ways, some of this terminology they uses a lot of like Hindu, Buddhist terminology. The gods are real crazy names to say. It does all parallel right back to this same concept that you've been talking about in your books and everybody's been talking about. So let me read just a little bit of these articles that I pulled up and I'll kind of tie it all together with something from Bailey. So this is and I can send you these articles too if you want to link them in the show notes so you have them. They are
Okay.
secular articles, just so it's said again, they're secular articles. So this is an article here on this whole Yuga cycle, and it says evidently the Yuga cycle and the Earth's precision cycle are one and the same and extend for 25,800 years. On the 21st of March, 2025, the Kali Yuga and the entire descending cycle of consciousness will come to an end, and we will enter a long period of transition, nearly 1,200 years, during which time our planet will be dramatically altered beyond recognition and the outlines of a new civilization will be manifested, which will be permeated by compassion, peace, harmony, and truth. The environment will be restored to its original pristine state, and the interdimensional gateways may open up, revealing to us a reality that we have long forgotten. However, my research also indicates that the collapse of the current Kali Yuga civilization is likely to be completed in a small window of time between 2025 and 2040 due to a combination of global wars and comet impacts. These are the end times that the ancient prophecies, and I have no idea what prophecies they're referring to, by the way, tell us of when our reality will be drastically altered and we will be forced to introspect about our patterns of thought and our way of life. The survivors of these transformative events will inherit a renewed earth and become the seeds of the new dispensation that is on the way. That's the first, isn't that crazy? That's the first little excerpt from that article. And this second one that I have um, talked about the Silla Kali Yuga cycle. And it said one popular theory holds that 2025 may not actually represent the end of the Kali Yuga, but rather the start of a transitional period marked by a change in public consciousness that will eventually cause the monster Kali's negative effects to decrease, whoever this is, right? The theory is consistent with the idea that the time is cyclical and that even during the dark age, there may be brief bursts of enlightenment before the Yuga actually ends. According to some spiritual teachers and astrologers, some significant cosmic events like planetary alignments or eclipses, and there are a lot of those happening this coming year, by the way, a whole lot of them. If you want those dates, I can pull those up for you too. So events like planetary alignments or eclipses may cause a change in the planet's energy and bring an age of what? Spiritual awakening. Such events are frequently seen as indicators of an upcoming significant change. And then the final thing that I have is from a PDF, and it's called Avatar of Synthesis. I don't know if this is something that Bailey wrote herself, but it actually quotes her. So I'm just going to read you this little excerpt. It says, and this is her quote: "The Christ will come again as the world's savior, but owing to the stupendous nature of the work ahead, he will, occultly speaking, will be forfeited and buttressed by the silent avatar who, occultly speaking, again in parentheses, will keep his eye upon him and his hand beneath his heart in unison with his." And the next sentence says this: "In all the religious and esoteric scriptures concerning the coming avatar," so who is this avatar? It says Buddhist, Hindu, Persian, Christian, and the ancient mysteries. He is depicted as a rider on a white horse.
Yeah.
So this is the person that they're expecting to show up this year. A lot of them are expecting this rider on a white horse, no matter whatever god they claim him to be. It's him.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's right. I'm not sure if that was all Alice Bailey or someone citing her, but there's no doubt that all of these ancient pagan religions borrowed from the truth of biblical scriptures that God revealed supernaturally through the pen of human authors. And so they have similar strains, but all, of course, emanating from the satanic side of things. And that's, of course, what we see in Revelation, right? With the rider on the white horse in Revelation 6:2, which is the Antichrist, followed by, at the end of the book, the end of the 7 years, the rider on the white horse, which is called Faithful and True, who is Christ, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So it's interesting that one of the things you cited there in those quotes was this notion that maybe 2025 isn't the end, but the beginning of the end. And one of them even cited a range of 2025 to 2040. Now, what's interesting about that is if you kind of look into the 7,000 year model and you realize that Christ was crucified in 33 AD, the church was born in 33 AD. If you figure the 7,000 year model, the church age is 2,000 years, that puts us somewhere in the mid 2030s for the end of the church. You talked about some of the planetary alignments, and that to me correlates to the cosmic things happening. Well, that, of course, you can't talk about that without talking about Wormwood and Apophis.
Come on now.
And how that's going to hit, in Friday the 13th. What is it? May
2029. It is
2029.
April the 13th,
April 13th.
2029.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I knew it was April or May.
Yep.
So, if that correlates to, the prophecy in Revelation 8, well, then you would back up 3 to 4 years from that, at least 3.5 to 4 years before the start of the tribulation. So that puts us at 25, and the rapture has to happen before all that. So, again, this is all speculative, no question about it. We're not suggesting, that we're setting a date or anything like that, but it is interesting. Where I'm coming from, which is what you're talking about here at the outset, is what are Satan's co-conspirators' thoughts? What is their plan? Not that it's going to happen that way, because God can certainly thwart it. His timetable is the only one that matters. But what are they thinking? Well, all signs, Lauren, point to the 2025 and beyond era. I mean, they've talked about it for 100 years with Alice Bailey, as I said at the outset. What do you make of it?
Well, and that's the thing. So you mentioned that whole 6,000 years, 7,000 years. So I kind of land in there. There's been a couple videos. Lee Brainer's done a few on this, but there was this whole like rapture window of like 2023, 24, 25, and 26. That these were those years, like because scholars are kind of divided on, when Jesus was crucified. Was it, 30, 31, 32, 33 AD, right? So if you put those items together, just like what you were talking about, you were doing that math. Depending on where you land, whether it's 30, 31, 32, or 33, you can always back the calendar up. And that's where we got the, rapture window, if you will. Well, obviously, 23 and 24, we can scratch out. We're past that. But this year has looked real promising in the sense that, like, could it be? Because they are gunning for this. And the point that I was talking about this to Josh Peck last Friday when he was on my program. And by the way, like I said to you before we started, your interview with him that aired yesterday was awesome. He's such a cool dude and his mind is just massive. But anyway, I was asking him, I was like, Josh, I said, the thing that gets me is that while people are divided on the year, like I actually land on a 32 AD JD or JB. So you said 32 or 33 AD. So regardless, scholars are divided on those years and some people come up with different dates, but Satan was there. Like he knows the exact date that it was, where we might have a little bit of like, well, no, it could be this or it could be that, but he was there. So if there's merit to this, it's interesting to me because it's kind of like he has some information that we all can't come to full agreement on and know for sure. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it does. In fact, my friend Dr. Tom Stegall, who we've had on a few times, he's going to come back on. He and I have been talking about that. We're going to do a show on the 7,000 year model, and he made the same observation that you did, and that is that Satan, who's a lot smarter than mankind, perhaps he looks at the annals of human history and sees patterns developing and sees that God does work in these patterns of seven. And so, again, we don't have an exegetical proof
No.
of the 7,000 year model. It's not a thus saith the Lord thing. It's more of an intriguing observation, kind of like the seven churches in Revelation 2 and 3, representing panoramic view of church history. Again, not biblical, but interesting and possible, right? So, you're right. Satan could have been looking. And by the way, I'm pretty confident in the 33 AD date. Uh, until more recent times, there have been some that have thought 30 AD, and I
Yeah.
suppose there's some even at 31, 32, but generally for years it was thought to be 30 AD. Then with recent discoveries, including the date of the death of King Herod and others, we've pretty much settled. Dr. Harold Honer,
Yep.
who's with the Lord now, his dating is really kind of the seminal work on all that. It was his magnum opus, and we pretty much have it nailed down into the 33 AD. But
Hmm.
regardless, it doesn't change the point that we're both making here,
Right.
is that Satan could have been watching whenever that was, realizing that based on the patterns he's witnessed, uh, the church is going to be around for 2,000 years. And perhaps that's why he sent one of his demons, Master DK, to channel to Alice Bailey to say, hey, be ready for the 2025 time frame, because that's when the rapture is going to happen, which other new age theosophists like oh, what's her name? Her name escapes me at the moment, but other New Age experts have long been talking about a sudden disappearance of people.
Oh, Margaret something or other.
Yes,
Her.
right. Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
she got a
yep.
weird last name, but yeah,
Yeah,
her.
Mangione or something like that.
Hmm.
I forget. All of our viewers are going to email us and say, "You
They
dummy."
are like, you guys are
Yeah,
wrong. Yeah,
yeah.
dummies.
Marciniak. That's it.
That's
Marciniak.
it. That's it.
Yeah.
Barbara
Yeah.
Marciniak.
Yeah,
That's it.
Barbara, not Margaret.
Barbara.
See, you,
Yes.
you you had the M, but you
I
just had the wrong name. Um, and by the way, the show that you mentioned where we talked about CERN and the belly of the beast and stuff, that aired January 14th on
Hmm.
the NBW Ministries podcast. You said yesterday because we're recording this at a
Yes.
different time. But for those who want to find it, it aired January 14th on the NBW podcast, and then you had him on Friday. What
The
was that?
10th.
The
It was the
10th.
10th, yes.
Yeah.
And we talked about Apophis because what's funny is my head has been in all this stuff. And then I ran across something and I watched the documentary Ragnarok years ago with him and Dr. Tom Horn, the late Tom Horn. Gary Stammer was in that video with him. And there was this clip, and I screen recorded it because I'll probably end up doing a piece of short content that's not a big, long video on my channel for it. But it was this little excerpt of those three talking about, 2029 is the most, I think even Josh said it Friday, that it's the closest that comet is going to come to the Earth or something. There's like three different more dates past 2029 that it could hit, but 2029 is the closest. And Tom was talking about that they think it's wormwood. And so if right, it was to hit that year, you could again, just doing simple math, back up the date and looked at, we're kind of in that window, right? Again, no, we're not date setting, but these things are fascinating because, you know, it's kind of, we're getting to that point, and this is the quote that Gary Stearman said, and I've actually I took this quote from him because I've heard him say it so many times, but like, we're not going to know the day and the hour that the Lord is going to rapture the church. But Gary goes, we surely might know the month and the year. And I feel like with all this stuff that's happening, it's a lot easier for us to put those puzzle pieces together than even what we had a couple years ago, JB. And I feel like information overload was happening a couple years ago from some of this stuff, and people were starting to really just place pieces that didn't even exist for the most part until a couple years ago. Well, hey, real quick announcement for you before you get back to the rest of the content you are watching. If you are somebody who is loving everything that I am doing on this channel, I have an ask of you today. Now, the first ask is something that every single person who is involved in this ministry and this community of people can do, and that is to pray. And I have some very specific things that I want you to be lifting up to the Lord. The first is simply that you would ask that the Lord would continue to help get this message of this channel out to those who need it. He is sending all kinds of people to this channel, and it is amazing. And I want to continue to thank him for his favor and just ask him to continue to bless this channel by getting the message out, since y'all all know that we have a very short amount of time to help get people to understand what is going on. And the second prayer would be that you guys would continue to thank the Lord for the ways that he is restoring the business that Lance and I have had. As most of you guys know, I have a job outside of the house because I had to get a job outside of what we've been business owners for so long, but I had to over this last year because we just were not making it. The problem is that now the Lord is impressing upon my heart to go full-time in this ministry, and I can't do that because it's still requiring my income in order for us to make it. So I am just going to ask you guys that you would continue to thank the Lord for restoration. He is doing some amazing things in that business, but until that business is making what it was before the economic downturn, I'm going to have to continue working, and that means my time is going to continue to be divided. I'm going to continue to be very limited on what I can do, and that's really frustrating for me because I have so many things that the Lord has put on my heart to get out to you guys, and not just videos and content, but downloads and things of that nature. And I can't do any of it right now. So if you could continue to just lift that up and thank the Lord for the restoration that he is doing, that would be so awesome. And the last thing is, if you are somebody who is considering partnering with a ministry, I would ask that you would prayerfully consider certainty for uncertain times. I think it's no secret to anybody that anybody who is a content creator on these platforms, we incur costs. And most of us don't have big, bad budgets, right, in our families to be able to do this stuff. And so it is through the help of people who are involved in our channel supporting us. And what I would simply say is that don't think that $5 or $10 can't go a long way. I have somebody who faithfully donates $10 a month to my channel, and she every single month, and she actually pays for nearly all of the costs that I incur each month just to be able to live stream. So if you are somebody who is prayerfully considering something like that, and you're looking for a place for that to go, and you love what I'm doing here, I would love it for it to be me. But make sure first that you are giving to your local church. That's where your 10th needs to go. But above and beyond that, if you're looking for another place to sow a seed, if you will, I would ask that you would consider this one. And thank you to everybody who has donated to this channel so far, and thank you to every single person who comments on videos, who likes videos, who shares videos, and who is involved in this community. You guys are the reason that it is growing the way that it is. And I'm super excited about what the Lord is going to do. All right, back to your video.
Yeah, and let me break down, because sometimes we talk about this stuff all the time, so it sort of rolls off our lips like we assume everybody has this.
Everybody knows.
Yeah. So Revelation chapter, let me see if I can find it. I think it's chapter 8. Chapter 8, verses 10 and 11 are the third trumpet judgment. Now, most scholars believe, in fact, I don't know of any that put the trumpet judgments in the first half of the tribulation. So I think we're on safe ground saying with relative certainty that the trumpet judgments all occur in the second half of the tribulation. So the tribulation is Daniel's 70th week, 7 years in length. The midpoint is a decisive moment when the Antichrist sets himself up as God, desecrates the temple, and rolls out the beast system. That's at the 3.5-year mark. The trumpets then come after that. So the third trumpet is sometime around, let's just say, the 4th year of the tribulation. This third trumpet is a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. The name of the star is Wormwood. So what we're talking about here is that the asteroid Apophis which is a Greek name. You can actually go to whereisapophis.com, I think it is, which is a site that NASA has set up to track it. Is scheduled to, according to the official narrative, be a near miss on April 13th, 2029 AD. But some whistleblowers from within NASA and other independent scientists have looked at the data, and they've concluded that it's actually going to impact Earth,
Hmm.
in which case the size of it, I forget the size, but it's enormous, and it would do devastation along the lines of what's described here from this third trumpet in Revelation 8, 10, and 11. So let's just have some fun for a second. As you said, just speculating.
Okay, that's
If
all we're doing.
if the third trumpet is this Apophis, uh, then, and we know scientifically when it's going to hit, April 13th, 2029. If you back up 4 years from that, you get to the official beginning of the 70th week of Daniel, which would then be April 13th, 2025. Now, of course, scientists could be wrong on their calculations. There are a lot of variables here. It's not an exact science in that sense. But if that's the case, we know the rapture has to happen before Daniel's 70th week. We're in a pretty tight window for the rapture, aren't we?
We are. So, and again, it's just really fun to
Yeah.
contemplate because, obviously, you've been speaking about this for what, how many years now?
Well, 35 years on end
Okay.
time stuff. Yeah.
Okay. And then some of the folks in the field have been doing this for half a century. So it's like it's crazy because the closer we get, it just seems like we were just like what we were talking about, more of those puzzle pieces. It's almost like they're appearing on the table for us to go, I didn't know that piece was there yet, and now it fits.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of wild to see. And then we look at and I'm so over all the politics, but we look at the political climate and I go, I'm just like scratching my head because I'm going, so many things are just, as they say, the stars are aligning. It's so odd to see all of this happening the way that it is right now.
Yeah.
So,
The stars are aligning or in some cases falling, but either way, it's got
yeah.
prophetic significance, right? So,
Yes,
um,
exactly.
so what are some of the other things you mentioned at the outset there?
Mm. So, okay, let's start with disclosure. Do you know anything more about that? I mean, I've heard it a couple times, but then it's kind of been lost in the news cycle because there's so many other things happening right now. But Pete and I were chatting Monday. I was on Pete's channel and we were talking a little bit about that. Could there be anything that happens before the inauguration day? And he mentioned that again about disclosure. I can't remember the guy's name that mentioned it, but there's going to be some like massive disclosure that's going to shock people.
Well,
And
Stephen Greer's been in the news a
Stephen
lot
Greer,
lately
that was
talking
it.
about that. Yeah. First of all, I don't think we're going to see anything that preempts the inauguration. This show, again, to our audience, is airing after the inauguration. So if we speak in terms of uncertainty about it, that's why people might be
Hmm.
going, wait a minute, he's definitely got inaugurated. But I don't think we're going to see anything preempted. I think Trump is really playing a key role in what's coming next, whether wittingly
Oh
or
yeah.
unwittingly. Notwithstanding any good things that he's doing, there's a big picture at play here that is rapidly heading towards a technocracy, like Leo Hohmann and Pete, uh, my friend Patrick Wood, and
Yep.
many others have talked about. Britt
Gillette.
Gillette.
Hmm.
So it's. I don't think we're going to see anything that sudden, but I do think that the way they've been telegraphing, really going back to 2017 and the earth-shattering New York Times article in December that really broke the whole story about ufology wide open. I think they've been telegraphing that something big is coming.
Hmm.
The question is, do the powers that be in the government here in America, military leaders and the Space Force, are they in on what's being planned, or are they equally frightened of all of this technology and these UAPs out there, which some of them may think they are biological? I don't think they are. I think they're dimensional and demonic. But regardless of what they might speculate they are they afraid of them and therefore, scrambling to try to prepare? Could that be what started the Space Force? Could that be what all this drone craziness is about? What are your thoughts on that?
So I feel like it's kind of like a mixture. It kind of we've talked about this before, just in other realms and other terms, but like we know that we have good individuals that are in places of power. Now I think we both kind of question in high places of power what they've done to get there, and that's a whole other topic. But I do believe that there are probably some individuals who are nervous about this stuff, but I believe that there are plenty of people in smoke-filled rooms, as you always say, right? They're
Mhm.
communicating with these entities, and I personally don't believe that that stuff's going to show up, the Nephilim, Return to the Nephilim, all of that until we're gone. But they're getting real prepped for it. They're getting real prepped for letting people know what's going on. The other thing that's interesting is, as I've been doing all this deep dive into the occult pieces too, I've been paying attention to even Bluebeam, and I went back and re-listened to good old Grandpa Randy. Y'all's message was that in July. I think y'all did this big special on
Mhm.
Bluebeam. Okay, so I went back, was reading through that document. Matt was on my channel right after the first of the year on January 3rd. I put that document in there because we talked about Bluebeam, things that we were watching for 2025. Well, I remember Grandpa Randy saying something to the effect of that there's Bluebeam is going to have this big disclosure in May of 2025 that I can't
Yes.
remember how he worded it. We say something about I think he said something about demons. I can't remember, but I was just kind of like, holy moly. So I'm going back through that document. So it just kind of seems like, I know there's just so many tentacles. That's why it's hard to keep up with so many things, but it does seem like there's a narrative being built there too, to tie some of this together as well. So that's the other thing about the disclosure thing that I'm going, and then the drone stuff. I don't know. I've just seen so many different things on that. We've seen weird stuff before, so I don't know. I don't know what to make of all that stuff.
I'm going to ask Randy while we're on the air here and see if I can get a response from him
Sweet.
because I forgot about that. But yeah, there was a lot of chatter out there about a May 2025, some kind of disclosure event.
So that's what I was wondering is maybe with this disclosure thing that's being talked about right now, maybe it's a situation where it's like we're going to tell them this, but it's more to prepare them for when we do it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that it's going to be at this time frame, but more of when. So, because you know how they are, they tell us what they're going to do. It just may not always happen at the moment they're like telling us this narrative is going to come out, but they're prepping the public for a narrative, no doubt. No
Yeah,
doubt.
and as long as we're pretending to be sensationalists here, let's have a little more fun and speculate about um, the kinds of things that could happen coming up. I mean, if let's assume that in the cosmic realm there is a major battle that is really heating up. I mean, we certainly know biblically and theologically that this battle is in the unseen realm, that we're not warring against the flesh and blood, but against principalities and so forth. But as I and many others have pointed out, it seems like this battle is heating up, to new levels unforeseen. And so let's assume that this battle overflows and we see massive increase in UFOs, i.e., demonic activity come May. Um, what's Trump going to do about it? What's the U.S. military going to do about it? Is this going to be the thing that unites the world under a global government to address this invasion from another planet? I mean, are we that close to this kind of thing?
I mean, maybe. Do you remember the quote that Ronald Reagan gave, don't you?
Yes. Yep. 1987, September. I don't remember the exact date, but it's September, I think, 21st. In his address before the UN General Assembly in New York City, he said, I often think how quickly our differences would, disappear if we were all facing some threat from another world, something like that. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, in the past, I've been more inclined to think that we're going to see some earthly catastrophe, economic
Hmm.
collapse, terrorist attack, war, nuclear bomb, EMP, those types of things that really are the beginning of the end for this country. But boy, what's going on with all this stuff in the skies? I mean, it's like, I mean, the fog. Did you do any research into the fog lately?
I haven't had a chance to. I have not. I have not. But I've heard some things on that too. But again, not enough to go say like, well, I've gone down and vetted a few things. I have
Yeah.
not. But it's a fascinating piece. And then again, so just like you said, talking about, wars, catastrophes. Well, now we have the bird flu, and I saw something today about another, let's bring back the pandemic measures today. I was like, oh no, nope, 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 not doing this again. But there have, so it's like those conversations are coming back into play also.
Yeah, I talked to someone recently that said there have been a couple of states that are starting to impose mask mandates.
I
Can you
heard that too.
imagine? I mean, I
I'm
thought,
not.
I mean, I guess I sort of knew it was probably going to happen again, but still, it's just like seems like that ship has sailed, and nobody in their right mind would buy that narrative again. Useless
Well,
masks.
I agree. But you know what's funny is working at Roadhouse and stuff, we do see a couple people. I'd probably say at least every other shift, I see one or two people come in masks. Now it breaks my heart because I can tell they just bought all the narratives, hook, line,
Yes.
and sinker. And but it is happening a little bit more frequently than I would like to admit. And it sends me into rage every time I see it. So
I know.
it really does.
But you're so nice, and you have to be in the customer service industry. You have to be nice
Oh
to people,
yeah.
no matter
I
how
just
dumb
love
they
on
are.
people. I just
Yeah,
love on
it's kind of
people,
like
but
being a pastor. You have to be really nice to them, no matter how dumb they are. Of course, I'm not talking about anybody at Plum Creek Chapel. Let's
oh
clarify.
shoot. Well, if the opportunity presents itself, I would like to help educate.
Mhm.
I feel
Yeah,
like that's a bad thing.
yeah. So, pandemics, yeah, going back to that fog thing, like you, I don't really know enough to know one way or the other, but it's definitely a thing. I mean, it's people saw it, witnessed it. We've got video.
Yeah.
They smelled some strange smell. I feel like we're living in a 1960s horror film or something with the thing, the blob, whatever coming out after us. Uh, you know, and the funny thing is, or not funny, but the interesting thing to me is that it's almost like there's a sense of normalcy to it in a way. It's like you say it and the words come out of your mouth and you go, wow, that's a pretty big deal that
Mhm.
this fog covered several states and no one knows where it came from. Or that's a pretty big deal that these drones in the hundreds are swarming over places. And sooner say the words than you stop and you think, well, how come that's not getting more? How come that's not mainstream attention? And then here we are on Fox News and CNN talking about the backgrounds of these Trump appointees and how much the Democrats hate the Republicans, and it's all cake and circus, isn't it?
Ooh, yes. Like I know we were talking about this earlier this week too, and for me, I brought it a few points, but just the other day, I think it was last week, Trump was talking about $20 billion is going to go towards AI data centers. Because he's,
Oh, yep.
Elon Musk is like his right hand man. I don't know what happened to JD Vance. I think he's just fell off the earth, but Elon has all of this, the tech and the technocracy. Like that's what I spent Monday with Pete talking about was all of the technocrat type stuff and Peter Thiel and how they're connected and all the things and the BCI, so the brain computer integration, all that stuff. And so, Trump is really he is so invested in the AI piece of this and the technocrats. Like so they're, so again, that's going right into the hand of the beast system as well with the Revelation 13. So there's that. And then, of course, as we just talked about too today, as of today, there's big talk about the two-state solution. And he talked it wasn't a tweet, it was whatever that network is, but he said,
Truth Social. Hmm.
Truth Social, thank you. The epic ceasefire agreement could have only happened as a result of our historic victory in November, as it signaled to the entire world that my administration would seek peace and negotiate deals to ensure the safety of all Americans and our allies. And he, went on to ramble on about that. But I hear the term peace and safety, peace and safety. That's in everything. That's in, all the World Economic Forum stuff. It's in all the United Nations stuff. Like everything is peace and safety, peace and safety. So again, it's just those words that are just, they're getting my brain going.
Yeah, and what about this news item? By the time our podcast here airs, this will be past history. But Trump's going to have an imam pray at his inauguration, and it's the same imam that Sean Hannity on Fox News ridiculed back in 2007. And now all of a sudden he's okay. He's okay to come pray before the inauguration. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that no matter how many times it happens, it doesn't seem like people get it.
Hmm.
I called out a lot of the satanic, immoral, flagrant debauchery that was characteristic of the Republican National Convention, the
Oh
satanic
yeah.
things. And it's just, ho hum, he's not Kamala Harris, so he must be okay. And yet now he's in office and we're seeing some of this same stuff. I don't know. There are higher powers at play, aren't there?
Definitely. And you know, when Matt and I were talking about this on the 3rd of January, we are kind of going over even just some of the picks that were coming out or that might be coming into the administration. And again, Elon is the big one that we're watching. I mean, whoa, that guy. But my point that I've made is that where I struggle, and I, you know, I kind of think he's involved, but where I struggle is simply that if he weren't, wouldn't he want to separate himself from all of these people who are pushing all these things that are just not that basically are the same thing that Agenda 2030 wants. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because now Bill Gates has come back into the picture and wants to have dinner with the guy. You got Zuckerberg coming over. So I'm going, what in the world is like everybody hated these guys. Like why, you know, where is this coming from? So those are the kinds of things that I just really, you know, those are big red flags for me. Like if he wasn't snowed in his first term, or I'm sorry, if he was, yeah, did I say that right? If he was snowed in his first term, then wouldn't he want to perform something differently and bring people into place and of power in his second
Yeah.
term who weren't tied to these things? That's where I kind of have the internal battle.
Yeah, it's a reasonable question. Anybody ought to be asking. You can't, you can't have it both ways. There's no satisfying answer. Even if you say, "Oh, he just
No.
listened to bad advice and got bad, advice in first term," well, that it doesn't end there. That raises more questions than it does answers, honestly.
Well, hey, let's get real honest. The world is a hot mess. Economically, these have been the worst years that we've seen in decades. And if history tells us anything, it's that these goofballs running the show have no clue what they're doing at all. Now, like many of you guys, we have been putting away tote bins full of canned goods, dry pastas, and non perishables. But we found that there are a few problems with that. A, we have no clue how long that food will actually last before it turns into some failed science experiment. And B, the stuff that does last is loaded with preservatives and chemicals that we normally wouldn't eat. And C, where we're getting these products is only making the same evil corporations richer. And y'all, ain't nobody want to be doing that. God really began burdening our hearts to prepare beyond just leaving behind a Rapture kit and every single magazine of prophecy watchers that we had. We wanted to make sure that whoever finds our home after the rapture has everything, not just food and water, but supplies for babies and pets and everyday survival. But we also realized something else. What if we're here longer than we expect to be? What if food shortages start before we actually do? Boom and zoom. We didn't want to be caught unprepared. So after doing it the wrong way for the last several years, we finally found an actual solution that helps us prepare for two things. First, to leave behind supplies for those left behind after the rapture, and second, to make sure that we're covered if we do see some sort of economic disaster here. This is also a way for us to have food storage that lasts 25 years, avoids disgusting preservatives, and gives us real meals like biscuits and gravy, orange chicken, beef stroganoff, and coffee because, you know, priorities. But the best part, we don't have to guess if it's still going to be good in 10 years. That solution, my Patriot Supply. And I know what you're thinking. Lauren, food that lasts 25 years, I'm pretty sure it's probably going to taste like MREs. But no, this isn't some cardboard flavored chalky survival ration situation. This stuff actually tastes good, which is important if you're trying to survive anything from a blackout to, I don't know, total chaos. So here's how easy it is. Just click the link below in the description box and you're going to find a ton of options to suit whatever your prepping needs are. Step one would be to browse through everything from generators to survival gear to water filtration and heirloom seeds. Step two, go ahead and check out their 4-week emergency food kits or even your 3, 6, and 12-month supply if you're serious about having a stockpile. Step 3, pick what works best for your budget and needs. And then step 4, get it shipped to your front door. That's exactly how easy they make it for you. Now, back to your video.
But I don't think he even knows. I think the whole mess is just so shrouded in demonic deception that really the right hand doesn't even know what the left hand is doing. I think ultimately at the top level, yeah, there are people in the know that are definitely conspiring with the devil to kind of bring down this country and usher in a one world system. But the further away from that you get, I think it's all just this big cross pollinating weird competing agendas, and you don't know who's your friend and who's your enemy, and it's just hard to make sense of. And I think that's what makes it so hard on us, is we like to think in terms of clear cut choices and good guys, bad guys. And sometimes the good guys are the bad guys and sometimes the
I
bad guys are
know.
the good guys, and that's hard for us to understand.
Oh, it so is. And we said this before, but I'm happy with how everything's turned out. I think it'll be a lot easier to function. The
Yeah.
last 4 years have been difficult for a lot of people. But my concern is just kind of watching all this go. And I know we've talked about this before, but I just kind of see that, they couldn't get it done in, with the dark side. So it's like they're flipping the coin over. It's that, what do they call it? The replacing of the guard, or the changing of the guard.
Changing of the guard. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like this is now the light side, and now we're gonna keep going after the same policies, but we're gonna rebrand them, and we're gonna name them other things so that they, it's the same stuff. It's still gonna be a surveillance state, surveillance world. It's all of that, and they're painting it to be these things that are going to be helpful to humanity. And I love Shane's perspective too, because I don't think all tech is bad at all. I think a lot of this stuff right now is helpful, especially if you're in the creator world and all those types of things. But like, where it's going is where, that's where I feel like we as Christians have to be aware, because ultimately we all know the end goal. So it's just really about being aware of all of that. And that's the part that kind of gets me a bit concerned, is just seeing it race towards this whole, the golden age. And that golden age is all about tech and just being plugged in. And then at the same time, it's also all about this freedom, like old way of living too. It's really weird. It's like an amalgamation of something.
Yeah, I mean, the golden age can have two implications. It can mean old and on death's door, twilight years, um, but it could also mean the good times, the best times in the past. And I certainly have a hard time seeing how we're heading into the best times, the way the transhumanists and other, utopian fans think we are. But at the
Hmm.
same time, I don't want to be so fatalistic and depressing that I don't recognize there are good times ahead. I mean, look, it's an exciting time to be alive,
Very.
even if we weren't believers and didn't understand Bible prophecy, just with the capabilities of mankind on earth, we've got, you know, a lot more going for us now than we ever have. We can do
I
more,
agree.
we can accomplish
Hmm.
more. We've got more medical abilities and things like that. So, but I think we need to be careful and not to be lulled into this false sense of hope that the Christian nationalists and the NAR crowd within evangelicalism, which I've been writing a lot about in my forthcoming book. That's why it's on my mind. I think a lot of Christians are sort of caught up in that general sentiment that, hey, wow, we're with AI and technology, things are going better and better, and so they think, you know. They carry that sort of optimism over into the church in thinking if we can just elect enough Christians and we can just mandate morality and we can conquer the seven hills, then Christ will come back. And such thinking is not only unbiblical, which is really all that matters at the end of the day, but it's also, I think, dangerously naive.
Very much so, because I don't see anything going that direction. You know what
No.
I mean? I really don't. I don't see. I think if anything, what's happening, and I think what we're going to see more of, unfortunately, is the fact that we're going to see the rest of the world unite, but Christians are going to be taken out of that and ostracized, because we're the ones who are not going to fall in line with an anything goes
Yeah.
type of, acceptance or whatever that would be.
Well, devout,
Um,
I mean, faithful Christians, the remnant.
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think sadly, as we saw in 2020, many Christians are going to be very susceptible to a deception again. And, it's going to be interesting. In fact, I'd love your take on it. I've heard some, prophecy teachers say, oh, I don't think they'll be able to deceive us and dupe the world again with the whole masks and social distancing and taking the jab. I'm not so sure. What do you think?
I mean, I think that anytime you want to instill fear in people, and if you can do that at a big enough scale, they will beg for a solution.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's been our entire existence. That's what So I don't necessarily agree with it. Now there's going to be plenty of people like myself who are
Yeah.
going to be loud and proud and not and won't back down.
Yeah.
And I would say that I won't probably be as nice this time around, because I was trying really trying to so there's going to be that. But I still think, I don't know. Especially if the right person comes to the podium and says what needs to be said to get everybody to fall in line. And if a lot of people accept that person and like that person or whatever it might be, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I agree. I mean, in fact, this is probably a good time to get people thinking about that because I was fortunate early on in 2020 before it really hit the news, the whole pandemic thing. Uh, it was just beginning to leak out. I think it had reached Seattle and it was starting to become a thing. But I heard an interview with Catherine Austin Fitz and I think it was James Corbett, and they were talking about and what's coming and how they could use this to roll out this gene altering thing. This was way before Operation Warp Speed or anything like that. And it was such a riveting interview, and they had a lot of good facts and details. If you know anything about James Corbett, he's a very good researcher. And it just gave me the opportunity early on to have a talk with Wendy and really sort of steel ourselves, knowing that this thing that could be coming down the pike is and you don't want it. And will never forget, Catherine Austin Fitz made the comment, there are fates worse than death. In other words, she was like, even if someone
Hmm.
put a gun to my head, and uh, and of course she was proven to be right. And here we are 5 years later, and we all know the death statistics and the injury statistics. So I think I say all that to say I was blessed that by God's providence I was allowed to be introduced to this topic early on and really process it and come to a conclusion. So for us and for my family, it was never an issue. We just never even thought twice about it. We were not going to take that shot. Well, something else is probably coming. Folks, now's the time to think about it. Don't trust the government when they tell you to roll up your sleeve because history has proven time and again they don't care about human life.
No, I would agree with that. And I think that that's my hope, is that if something like that does come down the pike again, that we will have I hate to use the term awakening, but the awakening that has happened since 2020 on these particular items, especially in that narrative and that scope, is enough for especially believers to go, oh, I ain't gonna be fooled again. Like, that's my hope and prayer.
Yeah.
So I mean, Lance and I, same thing. That was, we were just very skeptical from the jump. It was just like something ain't right about this. And then,
Mhm.
it wasn't too hard to put the puzzle pieces together. It was just a matter of getting information out, and then, what all transpired after that.
Yeah, I mean, if
Um,
something's that much of an existential threat to humanity and you absolutely need it to survive, why did they have to entice people with gift cards and
Krispy Kreme
marijuana and
donuts,
yeah, and Krispy Kreme donuts? Why
which
were they
I do love. I
begging,
do love.
yeah, begging and compelling people and enticing people to come in? I mean, people ought to have been rushing to get it, and many were. But well, I tell you what, there better be an awakening before the next one, or there's going to be a big a murdering because that's what they did last time, and that's what they'll do again, right?
Yeah, well, without saying too much, there's some interesting stuff on a certain report that, if I share this out to YouTube, I'm not going to say it because I'll get slapped, but about 2025 and the population change, so all over the world. So people
Oh
should
yeah.
be,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Oh, yeah.
one.
We
That's the
talk
one.
about that in that same chapter I read from at the outset.
Yeah,
Well, Lauren, always a pleasure. Definitely a lot of
love it.
demonic fingerprints on 2025, and we're only not even 1 month in. Yeah.
Two
Wow.
weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal. Well, listen, let's do it again for sure. And always appreciate your insights. And, you know, uh, got my Texas Roadhouse gift card right here. So,
Come on, come back to Missouri.
that's
Come see
that's.
me.
Oh, we will. If we're ever in Missouri, believe me. Where in Missouri are you
We're
approximately?
in the, oh, you're good. We are in the St. Charles County area.
Oh,
So
near St. Louis then.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're out far enough away, but not far enough away. You know what I mean?
Oh
So,
yeah,
but
no, I
yeah,
know St. Charles for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
One summer we lived in O'Fallon, not O'Fallon, Missouri, O'Fallon across the river in the Illinois side. But yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
well we'll have to come see you. So
Come on.
and we'll be sure and leave a big tip. So
Hey, there you go.
awesome. Hey, this has been great. Really appreciate your insights and we'll do it again soon.
You bet. Thanks for having me on, JB. I always love getting to connect and chat with you for sure.
My pleasure. And thanks everybody for watching and we will talk again soon.
Well, we covered a lot of ground in that video today, and it was so much fun getting to do that interview with JB and just share some of the stuff that I have been reading and learning about things that were written, things that people believe. It's truly fascinating to me, and I think it's fascinating because all of us know that the stuff that they're getting is from demonic sources, and we have to ask the question, why is Satan so focused focused on this year and this time frame. And I think as we continue to keep going down the road of 2025, we're probably going to get a lot of clarity to that question. So I am going to keep my ears open and my eyes peeled for the things that are happening as we continue to walk down the road of 2025. JB, thank you so much for having me on your show again. I always love getting to connect and chat with you and appreciate just how like-minded we really are on so many things. So it is always a good time, and I look forward to the next time of having you back on the channel and me being there and all the things to come. So with that said, I think that's going to be a wrap for today's video. So per usual, keep your eyes on the sky and keep your ear listening for that shofar. I'll see you in the next one. Maranatha.